Let's get started for the 30-minute webinar about using Listenwise for remote learning with elementary grades. And I'd like to welcome you all to really what is, I hope, to be office hours virtually. We really want to rely on you and your questions and thoughts and comments as we go through the platform and give you some quick and easy ways to use Listenwise in your remote teaching. So just some introductions. I'm Monica Brady-Myerov. I'm the founder and CEO of Listenwise, and I am a former NPR reporter. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Roxana Castro, who is a teacher in Glendale, California. Would you like to say hello, Roxana?
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well.
All right, as we get started and just look at today's agenda, I also want to ask Roxana to share some challenges and successes she's had so far with her remote teaching in general and with Listenwise.
Yes, I've actually just started using it right before we started going into remote learning. So thankfully, some of my students knew how to use some of these tools. And I learned from assigning the quiz and also the assignment, that there are pros and cons. One time I accidentally assigned both, and so students got confused about which ones they are to complete. And I've also learned that there's a function on there where you can just attach the link, which I think you might demonstrate later.
Demonstrate all that, yeah.
And
no, we can go into more detail probably better when we're looking at the platform. I know when we talked before, you said you've taken an approach where you're not able to do a lot of your remote learning live, that you've had to do a lot of recording and sending email instructions, right?
Yeah, and so by mistake, I included the link that is available, and I forget the language that is used in the website, but I attached the link. And if you do that, the students weren't able to access the quiz or the questions that I had assigned them. So it created a lot of confusion in my Google Classroom. There were a lot of comments. So there is a difference.
We'll walk through how to avoid that. Thank you. Yeah. All right, I'm going to turn off my video now so I don't have to look at myself too as we carry on. I want to just get started by saying, some nuts and bolts about Listenwise. If you're not familiar with the platform, it's a fully digital listening skills building collection of more than 2,000 audio stories from NPR and podcasts. And they're all about 3 to 5 minutes in length. And then we have teaching resources built around the audio that is aligned to what you're teaching in science, social studies, and ELA. And you can assign it all digitally, as we'll show you how to do. If you haven't already signed up, please do so. It is free during the school closures. There is an element of Listenwise that is always free. So in the future, you will still have access to your account and many of the stories that are on the platform. So I don't want to go through a basic setup. I first want to just let you know that there are links attached to each one of these things that you can do to set up your account, and you'll be getting this webinar both recorded and the slides afterwards. And I want to welcome you all and ask you to also just get the chat box going, because I'm curious where you're from and what you're teaching, so that we can help you use Listenwise to the best of your capability in remote learning. So when you go onto the platform, the most effective way to use this in a remote situation is taking the time to set up your classes, which just takes a moment. And then once you have a class code, you enroll the students, and then you can do things like assigning quizzes and assigning assignments, which we're going to walk you through in a minute. Accessing Listenwise remotely, I think, is really, really easy. And this is something I want to stress for those of you who may have students who don't have a lot of bandwidth or might not have a laptop at home, that we're available on the mobile device as well. It is HTML5, so it's not an app, but it is easy to use on your device. And because it's audio and not video, it's easy to stream. So you can do everything on the phone, including listening to the story and then completing a quiz or completing a written assignment all online. And I can see one teacher, Robert, has told us that he's already added his classes and his kids are completing their first assignment this week. Great, that is ahead of the curve. Awesome. So one easy way to integrate or get your students into their classes is with Google Classroom. So if you're a Google school, we have the single sign-on, we have import rostering, we can share assignments. It's super, super easy through Google Classroom. But also going back to the side previously, you can easily do it without Google Classroom with a few short steps, which we walk you through in a video. All right, I'm glad to see we've got some second grade, third grade teachers and speech therapists, and Robert's agreeing that Google School, it was really, really easy to do. And welcome Karen, an ELD coordinator. All right, we'll talk a little bit about how to use that too. So easy way to get started on Listenwise is just getting familiar with all the search capabilities and being able to search for a couple different things, the topics that you're teaching, the audio measures, which are new to Listenwise and new overall. They are a measure of text complexity, of audio complexity, excuse me, and making sure the script they all have transcripts and maybe searching by standards. So at this stage, I'm just going to pop over to Listenwise Live and show you this, because it's much easier to demonstrate in person. So I'm going up to the search bar and I'm just hitting return so that I can get to the advanced search page. And then you'll see on the left that I can search by subject, Lexile audio measure, grade level, and type. Now subject, obviously, that's, you can do whichever subject you're most interested in. The Lexile audio measures are brand new from Metametrics. So this is a measure of the audio complexity of the story. And we have a lot more information about it right here. If you click that question mark, it will explain how we've divided these categories into low, medium, and high. If you are a Listenwise user for a while, you will have seen that our stories were all categorized in these buckets, but now we can give you more specificity for grade level suggestions for these audio measures. So if you are teaching second grade, you want to search for stories between 490 and 855. Now, these audio measures are on the same scale as the text measures that Lexile produces, but they are measuring different things. They are measuring many different parts of the spoken word as well as the text. And one thing to remember here is that students can listen 2 to 3 grade levels higher than they can read. So try not to limit yourselves for your elementary students, let's say, let's even leave this low medium so we can get a wide range of different Lexile measures that could be good for your students. And then I'm going to also just show you some elementary lessons, and I'm just going to do a search like that without any words. Then this brings up stories that meet these criteria, and you'll see in each story it's designated as low, medium, or high. You see the Lexile audio measure. You have that little question mark there again to give you some more information about how to select the audio. And then each story has a story synopsis, some tags, and a transcript that goes along with the audio. Now, this is a research-based approach to literacy. I'm just going to play a little bit of it.
The world of science has lost a pioneer. Some people named her copycat, some copy.
So you can see that it progresses in sync with the story, and every single story on Listenwise has this, and you also have the ability to slow it down by 20% if you have struggling readers or English language learners. So I especially feel for those of you who have English language learners, keeping the search range in the low to medium and trying to find the audio that is of a lower level will be really crucial for you to find the right stories for your students. So another quick start idea I want to share with you is if you haven't put in your classes and created your, rostered your students and such, one of the easy ways to share the audio is just with this button right here, Share Audio. That gives you a link that you can copy and paste into your web page. You could email it to students, or you could share this link to Google Classroom. Now, this is what Roxana was talking about a little earlier. It is very easy to share the audio, but just a reminder that that audio only comes with the audio, not the transcript. So it's not the same as logging into the platform where students will have the full support of the transcript and whatever assignment resources you give them. So I'm going to turn it now to Roxana, who's going to tell us about a story she used about squirrels, and tell us a little bit about why you chose this story, and I will show some of the features that you talk about.
I picked the story for my, I believe, I don't remember if it was 4th or 5th grade, but we're learning about nature and what we can observe in nature in our benchmark unit. So I'm trying to closely link the units that we are learning about in English language arts in either Spanish or in English, for those of you who may be using curriculum and benchmark, and trying to tie them together. So I picked a story that was about animals, because that's what the reading was featuring this week. And I assigned the quiz. This is a story where I said I accidentally assigned both the quiz and the assignment because I was learning how to use the tool, but they figured it out. And
let me walk them through how you'd assign the quiz, because it's super easy. You see there are 2 assignment buttons up here, 2 ways you can assign this. If I click on quiz, it gives me the option to preview what I want to show them. And did you assign it with the transcript or without the transcript, Roxana?
I did with the transcript, and I made it available to everybody.
Excellent.
Because I like that it highlights as it reads it, so it's a great tool for everybody.
Birds constantly tweet and chirp. They are talking to each other. What they might not realize is they are surrounded by
So you can jump around.
Behavioral ecologist at Oberlin College in Ohio, Marie Lilly, did the field work. Clearly relaxed.
So it stays synchronized with the audio and the transcript. And just going back in the assignment process for a moment, you can see here on this first page how you can assign it by student or by all of the class. So Roxana chose to assign her whole class the same thing. It included the listening supports, which means the slower audio and the transcript. And we're just previewing it here. And Roxana, when I'm just going to walk through what it looks like to the student when they take the quiz,
yes.
Listen multiple times. Do you believe your students probably listened a few times? What was their feedback?
Actually it showed up when students did log in multiple times, so I could see that. And I couldn't tell if it was because they were, through remote learning, they're doing other things. So I did like that. I could see that. But I did ask, my feeler students what they thought, and they said that they enjoyed the story. I trust their judgment, especially of those students. So I like the content because it's engaging as well, not just meeting the standards.
Great. And I've just taken a guess on these questions, but I wanted to get to the submit button. As a remote, I didn't guess very well. I did get the vocabulary answer correct, so I'm glad about that. But I wanted to show you this because, again, in a remote learning situation, it's you want your students to have immediate feedback. You know that helps in the learning, so they can see immediately what they got wrong and what the correct answer was. Now, you as the teacher have the ability to reset the quiz and let them take it again the next day if you'd like to do that. The other thing I want to point out is this little bar that appears in the student view, because that's what we're doing right now, is the student view. And if the student has trouble reading this sentence, you can highlight it and it will be read to them. In the experiment described in the story. So that's really key to, again, supporting your English language learners or your struggling readers who might have trouble with some of the questions and answers in the quiz, but are able to listen to the audio. Because, as I said, research shows students can listen 2 to 3 grade levels higher than they can read. So now let's go back, Roxana, to the written assignment, because you also assign that, and that's this button right here. Tell me what your thinking was behind assigning this written part of it as well.
Part of the benchmark curriculum has you read and sometimes you find the key details or the main idea or answer the question. So I wanted to mirror some of what we do already in class. And so when you assign this assignment, it asks the students to answer the question. So it has like a little space for them to, and you can adjust questions, right?
Did you do that? Because you can delete questions, you can add words, you could change entire questions, right?
I didn't for this one, but I did play around with it. I think, you know, for next time, I wanted to add, are there like any, some kids already add their prediction and in their answer, so that made me think about something I need to do for the future.
Great. So at the end of the assignment process, now this is a current event, so it has 3 steps. I'll show you a lesson in a moment. It has more things that you can assign, but it's super easy to assign a current event, and a story like this one is so entertaining to listen to for young kids that I think they'd enjoy it. Again, you can assign it only to selected students, or you can assign it to your whole class. And you, oops, actually, I guess I want to select all of them. Made the assignment. So it's very simple to execute.
And I was going to say that for our special ed team, we don't assign it to some of our English language learners or kids with IEPs or special needs, so that they can share a story that is actually within their reading level. So that's another option. So for that student, they don't get assigned this story.
Okay, interesting. Okay. What we're looking at now is the teacher dashboard. So I can see that I've assigned it to 12 students by clicking on see responses. I can see nobody has started it yet. Once they've started it, it turns yellow, and then it turns green when they've turned it in. And whatever feedback I write in the platform to them will appear over on this side. And then below is what the student sees. Now again, this bar popped up. You see this text, it's a screen reader, and it has a few more options than it did in the quiz, because what it does is, in addition to being able to read any word on the page to your learners, you can have it defined, translated into Spanish, or a picture dictionary. So it's just additional support. When you make an assignment, you get to choose what level of support you want for that student. So if you felt like your special ed students or your language learner students needed more support, you could be making assignments that are particular to them, that add all these additional supports around them, that help them complete the assignment more so than typical, you know, than your on grade level student, let's say. Let me show you another one. I just want to show you, let's see if so I'm not sure how many are familiar with Listenwise to begin with. We are very new. This is a very new curriculum for 2 through 5th grade. We're very excited to bring this to you because we've been primarily focused on 6 through 12, but recently more and more people have been making amazing podcasts that are designed and written for younger students, and we're able to now source those and create these exciting lessons for you. So the audio is also much more engaging. In our lessons collection, we've got science, social studies, and ELA, and in a lesson you see there are more resources than in a current event. So it does have the listening comprehension questions and the discussion themes, but you'll see it also has vocabulary, listening organizers, a T-chart that can be done online or printed out and completed, and language identification organizer is for you to listen and focus your listening and tick off the boxes as you hear each phrase. And the other thing I want to point out over here are all these additional websites, articles, paired texts. We've got a lot of offerings for you to do. Now, as a quick start, you know, in remote learning, it's very easy to assign the multiple choice auto scored listening quiz. This might be something you do more in your classroom setting. And again, this one has a quiz as well. We had a question, can you search the articles by Lexile level? Yes, you can. So if you are searching for the lowest Lexile level, let's just go back to that search bar. And I can even be particular and say, I really want to keep it down to just this level. And I'm going to search all the stories in that level, and there they appear just like that. Oh, that's going to take me to one of these really fun things we just added for the elementary curriculum called Weird News. These are 30-second long stories. Have you used these yet, Roxana?
No, I was talking about how I want to use them for vocabulary, from a vocabulary lesson for next week.
That's perfect, because we have focused on vocabulary in these 30-second stories. And in just 30 seconds, here are 3 amazing vocabulary words: resolution, regret, previous. And what we do in the assignment resources is focus our listening comprehension questions and theme questions around those vocabulary words. So let's just listen to this whole story, because it's only 30 seconds long and it's a lot of fun, and you're going to hear how much your students will enjoy it.
Good morning, I'm David Green. You might have made a New Year's resolution to avoid sweets after the holidays, and maybe you're regretting it now because bakers in the Indian city of Thrissur made the world's longest cake. Video shows it winding along festival grounds as rickshaws pass by. The previous record holder was a fruitcake in China, nearly 2 miles long. Guinness World Record says this one in India was more than 3 miles. Even better, it had chocolate frosting. Yes!
That is sure to get your students' attention. And then when you look to the questions, you can talk about why might you regret a resolution. So there's 2 great juicy vocabulary words around a really fun and interesting and engaging topic. So I highly recommend you search Weird News. All of them will come up. We're adding them every week. We've got a lot of really fun stories with that. Roxanne, I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk about a story you used about sand.
Oh yes, for my English 5th grade class, we're learning about resources. And so again, to try to align it with what we already are using in our other curriculum, the story of sand discusses another natural resource that they don't know about is also running out. So I assigned it just this Monday, actually, and only 1 or 2 students didn't complete it. I say that's pretty good for remote learning, actually.
Why do you think, what's so engaging about Listenwise for remote learning? What do you think it is that your students like about it and feel compelled to complete even under these challenging circumstances?
Well, because there's not the human interaction or connection, it makes it, because there's a voice behind the reading, it makes it much more accessible. And I think that's part of it, and makes it, the students feel like they're doing something more adult-like, because it is part of like radio. And I think some of the students know that their parents listen to NPR and podcast, and I think they really enjoy that aspect of it as well.
That's a great point. I really hadn't thought that much about how the voice, it is, it's so intimate and engaging and feels so immediate when you're listening to it. Let me show another thing. Going back to the quizzes, because I feel like if there's one thing I want you to take away from today is that just for engagement and, checking to see that students have done some work, assigning a quiz is super, super easy, and you get immediate feedback from the students. And as you saw, the students get immediate feedback. So what I'm looking at is a class summary report of all the quizzes my students have taken. And as you see, the quizzes are testing 8 different strands of listening, but we're primarily looking at, can students identify literal meaning, vocabulary words in context, the main idea, and inferencing. But I can go deeper into a student and look at the quizzes that she's completed and see where she's struggling and be able to focus my instruction on that. But it's also just a quick and easy way for you to just get some confirmation of engagement from your students. The other thing I want to mention is there's our current events are changing every single day of the school week, and we're really making a deliberate effort to think about younger students and providing them with the news information that they really need at this time of the coronavirus, but in a way that is not scary or upsetting. So, for instance, this story, Coronavirus Explained for Kids. This is done by a podcaster. Now, it's a little dated. We do put in this disclaimer that because the stories air at different times, and the information is changing so rapidly that we also want to be able to show that, when the story was actually recorded, to know that it might not be as up to date as possible. But this would be a great way to show your students' work, or show your students' ability to look at a current event. The other thing I want to point out is that you can easily give feedback to your students. So in addition to just quickly doing a quiz and seeing whether they did it or not and knowing how they did, when you make a written assignment, you can also share back with your students. Roxana, have you done written feedback with your students?
Yeah, I actually started grading them because I had been flexible with my deadlines, so I was waiting, and so I've been looking through them and just said, I can tell you really read this closely, please, or go back and reread certain parts. And I know that I see you have the return button, or the return returned on November 6th. So similar to Google Classroom, you can return the assignment if there's some miscues in their reading, or they didn't understand something.
Excellent. And when they've started or when they've completed, this is what it might look like. And when you're in the mode of giving the feedback, there is a box at the bottom that allows you to write that feedback and either reset it for them too, if you'd like. And that's what they will see when you deliver it to them. You can see it as well right here. So pretty easy way to keep track of your feedback with your students. Any questions? We've got a couple more minutes. Love to hear what you're teaching. Tell me what you're teaching and we'll see what we've got for you. I think the most powerful tool and way to use Listenwise is just that search bar and put in any subject. We've got 2,000 stories on the website. Now, as you are all elementary teachers, when you log into the platform, you will be clicking a box that says elementary. That's important for your students to be able to have access only to the stories we have classified as elementary, because there's nothing on the site that is problematic. However, some of the stories are geared more toward middle and high schoolers. And when a student goes on to Listenwise, they do have the ability to search any story they want to listen to. You as the teacher need to make the assignments, but they can search. Have your students done much searching, Roxana? Is that something they've taken advantage of?
No, I was going to record myself doing like a screencastify where I guide them through how to use some of the functions. So right now I've been keeping it pretty straightforward. We can just read it and answer the questions or take the quiz. But I do want them to start using some of the other things you described earlier.
Great. It's a great way to, the way you're rolling out the features is perfect, Roxana, because it's not overwhelming to them. It's starting with simple instructions and simple things you can do, and then working up over time to use more as you and your students become more familiar with the platform. So,
I wanted to mention about that, as you're saying that I have been preferencing assignments with quizzes on the search function, only because they import automatically to my gradebook in Google Classroom, and that makes grading so much easier. And so if you do an assignment, that's what I learned too, it will not transfer the feedback to my Google Classroom gradebook. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Great. Well, I'm showing a few things people are searching for and interested in, but letting your students also just search and listen to something is good too. And you could always have them, if they're in younger grades too, they could draw a picture, they could write a few sentences about what they heard. You can create your own extensions to their learning through the platform as well. So I'm just going to show another one, snowflakes. That's a really great states of matter. I know somebody was just asking about states of matter, and catching snowflakes is a really fun one. And it talks about the research on snowflakes. Ending on snowflakes doesn't sound like the best idea in April, but it can still snow in April. It has snowed here in April before, so wouldn't put it past it again. But that about wraps it up. Let me go back to this, the presentation, to just kind of leave you with my name and email and a couple more resources that you can use anytime. Oh, there we go. We've got technical support waiting for your questions. You can tweet us, let us know what you're doing, join our conversations. We're holding these every week because we just want to be here for you and help support you in this really difficult time as you're transitioning to remote teaching. So I want to really thank Roxana for joining me today. It was wonderful to hear your experiences, and I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having us, and thank you for providing this service.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.